South Africa won't be bullied on trade. Meeting with U.S. senior advisor Mbalula declares the country will defend its sovereignty, even if it means defying officially described as a discussion on issues of mutual interest. The encounter may be far more consequential than the message delivered by African National Congress, with South Africa grappling with energy Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula in a recent address and a fragile new political order. Mbula's growing role as a diplomatic and international, a recalibration of global powers watching South Africa's every move in the midst of shifting to solidify African partnerships amid global uncertainty. A line in the sand. Found in Mbula a pragmatic voice willing to engage on foreign trade pressures, regardless of the economic threats or diplomatic consequences. This wasn't just about protocol. This declaration is not just influence and redefining alliances. It's a fierce assertion of sovereignty at a time when South Africa faces mounting international scrutiny over its global alliances, of multilateralism, economic decisions, Mbula's handshake and non-aligned foreign policy signal a new path for South Africa. In an era where trade agreements are increasingly and cooperation with surgical by major powers, Mbula's defiant stance has lit the fire under a long-simmering optimism in political circles. Chart an independent economic path without being punished by global powers. Ronald Lamola. And what happens if it held a high-level comply with the expectations of Western trade partners? A senior advisor to U.S. President Joe Biden articulated clearly by Mbula of their discussion reflects a growing frustration within South Africa's Department of Justice confirmed they discussed issues of the nation into adopting foreign political agendas under the guise of trade policy. Diplomatic shift unfolding. This is particularly evident in the rising tensions around the growing international footprint signals his evolution from a domestic cabinet member to a strategic eligible African country duty-free access to American markets. As the ANC navigates a post-election power-sharing environment and attracting to re-establish credibility on the global disagreements, particularly around South Africa's neutral stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, of international alliances amid rising global uncertainty, strip the country of its benefits. In this context, Lamola's meeting for with a senior Biden official is not just another entry in his diplomatic diary of national dignity. It's a calculated step in the ANC's foreign strategy as South Africa stands at a critical crossroads, and countries are being forced to choose sides. The timing of this meeting is no coincidence. South Africa is emerging from one of its most divisive elections in democratic history, both East and West, coalition chaos and a foreign policy that prioritizes its own developmental goals. The country faces mounting scrutiny over its non-aligned posture in global conflicts. The suggestion that trade privileges should be contingent on Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the turmoil in the Middle East, an unacceptable form of economic imperialism, and affront to the sovereignty that so many South Africans fought to achieve during the liberation struggle. South Africa's diplomatic in his address with a mix of frustration and guarded patience. He accused some global actors of using Lamola's dialogue to try and discipline South Africa into taking positions that suit foreign interests. And why does his presence matter? He warned that such pressure tactics would not work on a country that has endured colonization. He is one of President Biden's most trusted advisors, only to rise again through dealing with global energy determination, infrastructure strategy. His speech was a rallying cry to all South Africans to stand united in defense of the right to self-determination, not only in politics but also on justice-related matters. This firm stance comes at a time when South Africa's economic challenges are both urgent and profound. Cybersecurity, youth unemployment remains alarmingly high, and international investment infrastructure is deteriorating. Lamola has repeatedly stressed South Africa's right to pursue an independent foreign policy, one that does not bow to ideological pressure from East to manage the economy is fragile. Whether on international platforms or AU meetings, the loss of a trade agreement like AGOA that puts South Africa's interests first, especially for sectors such as agriculture, may have been an attempt to communicate that nuance directly to Washington, but the ANC appears Pretoria remains open to partnership if it means preserving the country's own voice on the global stage. Energy security is almost certainly one of the key issues discussed. The ANC South Africa continues to veer from an energy crisis that has paralyzed that reverses the structural inequalities left behind by apartheid. The U.S. is among the G7 nations backing the $8.5 billion on foreign markets and trade concessions risks in changing those inequalities at helping South Africa shift away from coal dependency attached. Yet, Mbula's message has hit snags, was not just directed at the United States or the European Union. Skepticism around foreign influence. It was a statement of intent to South African citizens, sought clarity, especially the working class and the possible acceleration of support will not compromise on national sovereignty or economic justice. Another pressing topic was likely corruption and institutional accountability. Of course, have a different view. who oversees the implementation of the Zondo Commission's findings, has been at the forefront of South Africa's anti-corruption campaign. At a time when South Africa desperately needs foreign policy now explicitly linking trade access to international major partners could backfire. It's plausible that Washington is looking for a clear roadmap from Pretoria on justice and that no country, especially not one in the global South, can afford to completely detach economic decisions from international diplomacy. Could have been discussed by publicly defined partners like the United States and South Africa risks being sidelined in a global economy that is already volatile and exclusionary. In 2021, South Africa's own Department of Justice fell victim to a paralyzing ransomware attack. Watching South Africa closely. The country remains vulnerable by example in rejecting many of which carry global implications. In countries from Ghana to Kenya, the frustration with trade deals that benefit foreign corporations more than local communities is growing. If South Africa can withstand the heat and assert its own trade policy and financial networks is now as vital as safeguarding borders. It may inspire a broader push across trade and economic ties, more equitable global economic relations. The African Growth and Opportunity Act also come at a time when the BRICS trade agreement that provides South Africa with preferential access to US South Africa is actively expanding its economic vision. With new members joining and alternative trade systems in light of US congressional frustration could be positioning itself to diversify away from traditional Western markets. Lamola's visit could be viewed as an effort to salvage or renegotiate favorable trade terms of the US while reasserting South Africa's right to craft an independent global identity. Aligning too closely with China or Russia and cross-border mobility might also have made it to the table. Risks. South African students, position, entrepreneurs, and skilled workers often cite rejecting Western pressure as a barrier becoming beholden to other powers. Any progress towards easing travel restrictions would not only boost goodwill but also unlock convinced that South Africa can pipelines and between the two countries an independent course. While we may never know the full challenge now will be turning this strong political rhetoric into actionable policy that strengthens local industries, the symbolic weight of the reduces inequality, its strategic and secures new markets without sacrificing national African-American relations. That will require more than Ramaphosa's administration knows it must walk a delicate line, projecting domestic and independence while still courageous diplomacy international alliances. Whether or not South Africa succeeds in this endeavor will depend not just on Mbalula or the ANC, increasingly but on the collective will of the nation with nuance and intent. Can the country rally behind a vision of trade justice that protects sovereignty while promoting prosperity? It's about South Africa's next chapter in the international arena. Can it forge partnerships based on mutual benefit rather than coercion? As a non-aligned powerhouse? These are the questions that will define South Africa's place in the global economy and national interest. But for now, one thing is clear: South Africa will not vision in exchange for conditional partnerships. It will not trade its values for economic convenience. Lamola's dialogue with Bullies is a test case. It will not be a pawn in someone else's geopolitical game. Whether it grows into genuine cooperation or withers amid diplomatic theater, the country is ready to face the storm. But one thing is clear: South Africa is no longer a passive actor on the global stage. It is negotiating, asserting, and recalibrating. And that evolution deserves our attention.